Well, that was not perfectly done. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal, Jake, here, and thank you so much for joining me. Let's say hi to the gang that's here already. Anti-corporatist, good to see you. Pinkerbell, hello. Tom Trask, hi. Good to see you, my friend. Look, there's just so much that's happening, and the Republicans in their continuing quest to vex me have decided to dump all of their scandals while I was otherwise engaged. Um, let's just talk about Tenet Media for a second. By now, I have no doubt that you guys have heard about this a thousand times. I'm going to talk about it again anyway, because it's delightful and it's a great opportunity for us to return to something I've been saying for about a year, which is this. Nobody should be watching Tim Pool. Nobody should be watching Dave Rubin. The problems we're having in U.S. politics, I suspect politics around the world, but definitely U.S. politics, they don't come from a disagreement about what to do on agreed upon facts. They come from people having different facts, as in, some people have correct information and some people have incorrect information. The problem we keep seeing over and 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 over again since the days of Rush Limbaugh, I suspect possibly even before that, is that right-wingers find out that they've been lied to by their media, and they say, oh, look, media lies. Generally speaking, media lies. This is just proof to me that media can't be trusted, so I must go even further to the right. And we wind up having the same problems over and over and over again. We point out the fact that say there is not an apartment building taken over by Venezuelan gangs. And in fact, the people that told them that was the case were lying to them. And then they go back to those same sources of information to get told other lies because they like these lies. They want to believe that Venezuelans can't be trusted. They want to believe bad things about good people. Whoa, Pinkerbell. Member for 13 months. You're healed. I'm healing. I am healing. The old eyeball is almost back to 100%. I'd put it at like 80%. Hey, all right. That eye's looking pretty good, Jake. Well, thank you. I'm going to try to power through it. We will not get a more obvious version of this that we're talking about than the Tenet Media fiasco. You want it spelled out as clearly as possible. You want an opportunity to talk to people who fall for these lies. Point to Tenet Media. Oh, look. A bunch of Ruskies were trying to sow discord in America. They were trying to cause problems for us. How did they do that? Well, by going to the problem causers, the far-right media, and financing them. We're going to watch Joy Reid slap him around a bit because of all the corpo media. I prefer MSNBC. It comes closest to being honest with folks. But I'll tell you what you can do from the jump. If you spot anybody watching Tim Pool, or if anybody references Tim Pool as their reason for believing X, Y, or Z, point out that they ought not to. Tell them this person can't be trusted. You know they can't be trusted. Why would you reference them on anything? Why would you reference George Santos as a reason to believe this, that, or the other thing? Well, George Santos said George Santos is a known liar. Tim Pool is a known Russian asset. Now, you could argue, but he's innocent. He didn't know. Okay. That's what's called a useful idiot. He's a known Russian asset. So's Dave Rubin. What else have they been assets for that they didn't tell you about? When he was ranting against Ukraine, Tim Pool, did he mention, oh, by the way, a Russian is paying me a lot of money to say this right now? No. He's going to argue that he didn't know that was the case. It's irrelevant. A Russian was paying him a lot of money to get the U.S. angry at one of our own allies. These are facts. Here's Joy Reid with the breakdown.
Tonight with Russia still listening and still interfering in our elections. That is what we learned when the Justice Department announced indictments and sanctions Wednesday in a scheme that sounds straight out of 2016. The DOJ charged 2 Russian media executives in an alleged plot to illegally funnel millions of dollars to right-wing influencers by way of a pro-Trump media outlet. Specifically, the department charged 2 employees of Russian-backed media company RT with a nearly $10 million plan to fund an unnamed Tennessee content creation company as one of their covert projects to influence American politics. The company's description matches that of Tennessee-based Tenet Media, according to a review by NBC News of details included in the indictment. In a related but separate legal action, prosecutors seized 32 Russian-controlled web domains tied to a broader Russian influence campaign accused of spreading propaganda through bogus news sites to American voters. An affidavit supporting seizing the domains showed information detailing a series of topics Russian actors wanted amplified in the influencers' content. Things like encroaching universal poverty, record inflation, the halting of economic growth, unaffordable prices for food and essential goods, risk of job loss for white Americans, privileges for people of color, perverts, and the disabled, constant lies of the U.S. political party administration about the real situation in the country, threat of crime coming from people of color and immigrants, including...
Pause here for a second. Hey, right-wingers, do you notice something? Do you notice something? Russians trying to sow discord in the United States come up with a list of things they want their content producers to talk about. And it's just standard Republican nonsense. What does that tell you about the standard Republican talking points? They're anti-American. They are literally anti-American. You can feel however you want to feel about what ought to be in a political campaign's list of talking points. But you cannot deny that the talking points provided by a foreign spy operation designed to sow discord in the United States line up perfectly with what Republicans talk about every day, with what conservatives talk about every day. These people's goal, the Tenet Media goal, undermine America, weaken America. How do you make America weaker? Apparently, getting as many people as possible to believe conservative nonsense. Conservatives, we can't afford you anymore. We just can't afford the weakness you bring to the United States.
New immigrants from Ukraine. Overspending on foreign policy and at the expense of the interests of white U.S. citizens. Constant lies to the voters by U.S. political party B in power. And last but not least, America is suffering a defeat despite candidate B's efforts. We are being drawn into the war. Our guys will die in Ukraine.
AC dunking on Tinkerbell a little bit. Member for 15 months. Good Lord. Thank you, both you guys. You are literally the reason this channel remains in existence. It is possible I can afford StreamYard and editing software because of memberships. Thank you. And by the way, I hope it's going to pay off with some content you'll enjoy.
Now, if that also sounds like a list of pro-Trump right-wing talking points, or frankly, your average day on Fox,
get 'em, Joy.
It essentially is. But it also highlights how Russia launders its propaganda into the American psyche, especially through the use of social media, which is why Tenet Media came in handy. The indictment notes Company One, which describes itself as a network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues, the exact same language used by Tenet Media on its website and social media channels, and identifies 6 commentators as its talent. The indictment doesn't name them, but Tenet Media has 6 right-wing YouTube commentators on.
Okay. So up top, you've got right top. You've got 6 folks. Let me get their dumbass faces a little bit bigger. 6 folks who should never be listened to again. If you see somebody mention Benny Johnson or Matt Christensen or Lauren Southern or Dave Rubin or Taylor Hansen, apparently not even important enough to warrant a picture, or Tim Pool, any of those punks, do point out that the person who's referencing them is gullible enough to reference people who were gullible enough to be Russian plants and not even know it. They were spying they were literally agents for another country. When you in the spy game, when you call somebody a secret agent, like a secret agent man, like in the song, that's somebody generally who knows they're an agent and lives a life where they have to be secret about it. And, ooh, isn't that interesting? These people are several levels up. Their defense, I want to point out, they say that they were simply dumb enough to be what is known as a useful idiot. They say, when I was destroying U.S. security, when I was undermining U.S. security, when I was helping a foreign country attack the U.S., I didn't know that's what I was doing. When they were paying me giant payments, essentially envelopes full of money, although not literally. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was just being manipulated. You're going to trust this person about COVID? You're going to trust this person about how U.S. elections work? Why would you do anything this person has to say? They're too dumb to realize they were attacking their own country. How dumb are you, person that watches the channel? If the answer is you watch it at all, then you are at least as dumb as those folks up there. You can watch something that you're better than. I wouldn't have a show if this wasn't so. But when you see evidence that the person who is broadcasting you information is uninterested in whether that information is true or is personally unable to determine whether that information is true, that's when you stop watching. We could go on with this, but to what end? It's yet another example of why none of these people are worth a damn. None of these people should be watched. It's an opportunity that we must all take to reach into that pool of 70 million people and stop some of them from drowning in ignorance. 70 million people voted for Trump. You understand that? It's one thing for people to go chasing those audiences online. If it hasn't been made crystal clear with my tendency to fly off the handle and curse them out for an hour, I'm not chasing those audiences. I don't see value, at least at present, in extended conversations with these folks where we plan out what to do with the country, because they have no idea what's happening around them. But I do see value in talking to those people. And I do recommend that you talk to those people. Inevitably, you will come across people with merchandise from one of their shows. And it's an opportunity I recommend you take to say, why are you advertising that you are an easy mark for con artists? Why do you not realize you are a Russian tool? We need to cut off the infection at the source. I've talked about that AC and Pinkerbell have been around long enough. I can verify as of this stream to have heard this before. Misinformation and disinformation are major problems in U.S. media. We've talked about this before. Here it is again. Just talk about it another way through the Tenet Media scandal. Misinformation and disinformation are getting people killed. Joe Rogan is another one. Basically, any podcast watched by people that also watch Fox is a problem. Also, people that watch Fox We consistently get these moments where it is exposed that these propaganda outlets have no morals, have no ethics, have no interest in your well-being, have an interest in the downfall of the United States. These viruses chewing away at the health of America. And yet people go back to them. It's not entirely on us to stop that, but it is partially on us for not addressing it. Normal people ought not to just stand by when somebody else mentions the fact that they watch Nazis online. If somebody says, I love Tucker Carlson, the super racist guy, you just say everybody's racist. No, he had on his, as part of his staff on Fox News, he had somebody that was posting in white nationalist forums. No, the talking points he gives out are white nationalist talking points. Oh yeah, he was exposed as lying about the US election. You know that thing where there's 1,600 people in prison right now for? They're there because, in large part, the guy you just said you love lied to them about what happened. People are dead from COVID because of lies this guy told. What do you mean you watch Tucker Carlson? Why would you say that out loud, first of all? Second, why would that be true? You are no good at deciding what media is good. At the very least, don't watch news. Person I'm talking to, hypothetical person, don't watch news. You don't have the ability to understand what is true or not, and you've been lied to. Here, if you need a grown-up to make decisions for you, I'll volunteer. I'll tell you who to vote for. Because you don't have the ability to make that decision. At the very least, demonstrate to me, person in this hypothetical conversation, demonstrate to me that you can grasp the idea of critical thinking. We need to have these conversations. Doesn't matter if people get their feelings hurt. They need to understand a good person is not always a polite person. If you're from the suburbs, like your old pal Jake, sometimes you need to hear this, which is that the polite thing, the quiet thing, the thing that just lets us get past this social interaction, that's not always the right thing. And that's certainly not always the kind thing. If someone's fly is down and they got one ball hanging out of their pants, it's a smoother interaction to just keep your eyes up, say, well, have a good day, and then leave as quick as you can. But you're letting them walk around with their nutsack out. Was that kind of you to do? No. That's what you're doing when somebody says, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and oh man, it was hilarious. You're listening to a guy that got people killed, is currently getting people killed. You're listening to an anti-vax nut job, an anti-trans psychopath. I don't care if you're about to snort and say something about cancel culture. You're listening to somebody that spreads disinformation. You're the reason Tenet Media thought, ooh, America is ripe for exploiting. Stop doing that. Don't watch Joe Rogan. Certainly don't let me know you watch. Don't let regular, decent human beings know you watch that crap. You support that crap. You're the reason that crap exists. Idiots like you are the reason that crap exists. Callous morons. Don't be one. That's a social obligation we have if we consider ourselves to be good people. If you love this person who mentions that they watch Tim Pool or whatever nonsense, you have an obligation to them, to the person who is being deceived, to tell them to stop being deceived. Pinkerbell. We've been knowing they have been getting shady cash from nefarious sources. Good to have it exposed for real. True. Groove Dragon. The GOP has a nutsack hanging out. He's running for president. Yes. Narwhal by nature, remaining one of my favorite screen names. I click on the live thing, and the first thing I hear is nutsack out. So I fulfilled expectations. The audience was bringing up a really good point a moment ago, which is it was Pinkerbell and AC talking. What does this have to, or what does this say about who else they were accepting money from? Sam Cedar put it rather eloquently when he said, you don't take money like this. You don't even put the offer out there. Give me X amount of money without having had this happen in the past. Yeah. The fact that they're saying, "Oh, well, we just put out this offer and it turns out it was the Ruskies." Well, yeah. Yeah, it does. Why'd you put out that offer? Why'd you say your show was worth, what is it, $100,000 an episode, $200,000 an episode? Is it because perhaps someone else is already paying you to do that? DJ Eggs. Well, surprise, surprise. Good to see you, my friend. Narwhal by nature. When will billionaires be considered nefarious legally instead of just brokey brokes like me? I agree. I think we need stricter laws for billionaires specifically. And this is further down the line, but I think we need to get money out of the courts, period. Any legal proceedings must be done, I feel, with court-appointed attorneys at a flat fee. There are people in my family who right now are hopping in their cars to come and strangle me to death before I can keep saying this, but I don't think we should have private attorneys. Withdrawn. I actually do think we should have private attorneys, but not in criminal matters. I think, contract negotiation, that's separate. I think civil litigation, arguably separate. But when it comes to a criminal attorney, where the U.S. agrees that you have a right to one, it should be also a right to the same level of representation as anybody else. You should not be able to spend your way out of a criminal violation. Coming soon to a leftist space near you. Anti-corporatist. Wait a minute. We need to get money out of everything. There's some things I don't mind there being money involved in. And you ever notice how a lot of them basically flunked out of Hollywood? Yeah. It's very odd. I wonder, is that because being in Hollywood gives you a certain skill set? Or is it because they're just so mad about it, you know? I genuinely don't know. I've never been to Hollywood. Narwhal by nature, Bruce Rivers would like to have a word, and Legal Eagle, and maybe Rakita Law. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I want to stress, not all lawyers, I feel, should be public attorneys, but all criminal lawyers should be public attorneys. There should be no Johnny Cochran out there making a couple $1 million off of the legal defense of a former football player. What about their life up until this point, up until the accused criminal infraction? What about that means that they are more deserving of a robust defense than anybody else? Nothing. The laws are supposed to apply to everybody equally. And it's been a joke, a literal joke in the United States, that they don't. But I say go to the Robert Reich theory of when should the government pay for something. He put it perfectly. I can't do better than Robert Reich. He said, in essence, When it's a service, everybody is in agreement that is needed. Basically, when it's a service everybody could need at one point. Everybody could need, not could want, and not some people could need. You could argue that we should pay for that too. But I'm just saying there really should be no argument if it's a service everybody could need. Military? Yeah, that's something we all should pay for. Hospitals? Yeah, we shouldn't have private health care. Everybody could need a hospital at some point. Police? Firefighters? Absolutely. Lawyers? Unless we're all supposed to have a complete understanding of the law, we could need a lawyer. So much so that it's in fact already provided for. You can get a lawyer. But then the question becomes, why do you get a worse version? It's simply expanding on a right that people already have. Thank you. And I can't take credit for it, Narwhal by nature. He says, that's a good point, WYCD. We certainly treat doctors that way. Yeah, it's Robert Reich, man. Bill Clinton's Secretary of Labor, I think. I know, a Clinton administration guy, but yeah. Oh, Jesus. Groove Dragon, if you suffer through the movie Lady Ballers, directed and funded by Jeremy Boring, you will know why they flunked out of Hollywood. Fair enough. They hate that they were rejected throughout history. Failed artists turned out to be pretty horrible people. I don't know why I said people. People. Hitler, Manson, etc. Not all failed artists, says Wireless Mike, obviously, but it does seem to be a common trait in some of history's worst. Fair point. Gang. Got another one you may want to check out. The other day, Nick Fuentes ranted and raved against Donald Trump. Pause. Just enjoying a sip of that bitter drink called I Told You So. Ooh. Yeah. You cannot. If you're Donald Trump, you have a core problem right now, which is you cannot keep the crazies happy while appealing to the non-crazies. That's probably not cool. That's probably some kind of ableism I just did. You cannot keep MAGA villains happy while appealing to people who want to live in a decent society. And yet, he can't win with just MAGA villains. He can't. Regular people are sick of him, as well they should be. So what was Nick Fuentes so angry about? Understand, first of all, Nick Fuentes is a Nazi who got to have dinner with an ex-president. That's a huge win for the Nazis. You would think he'd be 100% behind this guy. Well, the problem is that 1,600 people went to prison for trying to overthrow democracy. They did so based on the word of Fox News, who lost the better part of $1 billion in a lawsuit to Dominion, and Donald Trump, who lied to them and said he won the election. Until recently, here's the big dummy. Wait.
63 million, which is what I got the first time you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that, and lost by a whisker.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that, and lost by a whisker.
So he admits he lost. Who's got family in prison right now because of J6? Who's got a buddy who's doing time because Donald Trump couldn't admit that by January 5th? He was too much of a baby to admit he lost. All he had to say is, lost by a whisker. January 5th. But he couldn't. Instead, he got a bunch of people killed. He got cops killed, Brian Sicknick among them, bashed in the head with a fire extinguisher. Some of them committed suicide when they saw the folks that they had been on the side of rioting against them. Got Ashley Babbitt shot in the neck. She died on the spot. Another lady had a heart attack and then was trampled. The trampling by her fellows, conservatives are terrible human beings. So, of course, they stepped on her when she fell down. But that's not what killed her. The heart attack apparently killed her while she was rioting to overthrow democracy. Smeared feces on the walls of the Capitol. Brought treacherous traitor flags into the Capitol. America can never again say that the peaceful transfer of power is unbroken. Donald Trump responsible for all that because he was too much of a baby. And now Nick Fuentes is angry with him. Is anybody else? Here's what you can do. Go to your friends that say that Donald Trump won the election and play that clip. Hold up. Here's that clip. It's on Reddit. There's the clip. Yeah, they stole from Nancy Pelosi. Absolutely. Be on the lookout for MAGA violence if Trump loses, says Donald James. Yeah, do. And I hope a motherfucker does in my neighborhood. My biggest regret is I was reporting on January 6th as opposed to clubbing traitors. Yeah, I'm sick to actual death of these people. And I'm sick of the DOJ failing to deal with these people, looking for any excuse they can to give light sentences to these people, trying to cut deals with them. No, these are traitors. They knew. You want to know why it's not going to be what Trump just said 4 years later, admitting he lost the election? You want to know why that's not going to be a massive sea change? Why Nick Fuentes has to act surprised, but a bunch of Trump supporters are not? Because they already knew. Truth never mattered to these motherfuckers. But there is a significant slice of them who knew, but required you and me to walk around pretending like they don't know in order to hold their heads high. That's the slice we got to peel off. The people who are uncomfortable being called out for this nonsense. If somebody claims that Trump lost the election, I recommend accusing them and saying, he didn't. Or claims to say that Trump won the election. Accuse them. Say, he didn't. Trump's even admitted that he lost. Stop saying that because it's not true and I won't have you lie to me. It's not true. Why are you lying right now? Because I'll tell you why you're lying. You're too dishonest to even trust the next thing that comes out of your mouth. I'm going to tell you why, and that's correct. Here's why. Because you know it's an untenable case. Because you know that defending Trump at all is impossible if he lost the election, which he did, and you know he did. Because he's a traitor. And I think you're a traitor. I think if you support a traitor in his treachery, that makes you a traitor. Stop saying that this guy won the election. No, he did not. You will not undo my vote. Stop saying you're going to vote for this guy. Stop voting for this guy. Don't be a traitor. It's a real simple conversation. Do you like Kamala Harris? Maybe. Not really. Oh, that's interesting. And that's just a little factoid. But it's irrelevant because you better vote for her. Because she's not a traitor and she's running against a traitor. Look, I might be wrong on the details. I might be wrong on the technique. Sitting here without one of these punks in front of me, it's easy to talk a big game. If one of those punks is a loved one, that's certainly going to change how you couch this stuff. But get to the core, the very core of the conversation. If they tell you that they think Trump won, pause them. You can be nice about it. You can be blunt about it. Do whichever you think is going to be more effective, not what's going to feel better. Me ranting and raving feels better, but it might not be really all that effective. Do what you think is going to be effective, but address the fact that it is not so. And they have to leave that conversation knowing it's not so. Trump did not win. Trump has now admitted it. We've known the entire time. Fox, the people who lied to you to tell you that Trump won, they had to pay the better part of $1 billion over the lies they told. And they admitted they knew were lies when they were telling them. You can't pick and choose what reality is. You must live in the same reality as I do because we're voting on what to do about it. Don't play this game where, I want the world to be evil, though, and I'll have to come up with a reason that I'm making it evil. The era of that nonsense needs to be held underwater until the bubbles stop. No more. We're not playing this fucking game. Sorry for cursing. That's what I recommend you do. No more of letting people pretend like they can pick and choose their facts. No more moving on and having other conversations as though, well, okay, I can't get them to believe that Trump is a traitor. I can't get them to believe that Trump lied about the 2020 election, which he did. But maybe I'll get him on tax policy. I'm happy to have all those individual conversations, but I am not happy to move on from one when it is the only thing that needs to be discussed. Is Trump a traitor? Answer, yes. Yes, he is. Did Trump lie about the 2020 election? He certainly did. There's more documentation for that than there is for my last health exam. There's more documentation for that than there is for what I've had a camera literally fed into my body to look at it from the inside out. More documentation that Trump lied about the 2020 election. You cannot vote for this guy. All of what Wireless Mike says is true here. A traitor, a rapist, a racist, a con man, a fascist. How many negatives does it take to get these people to wake the up for sake? The answer, I believe, is just one that they will acknowledge. Just one. The problem that we have is that these people are allowed to go on living in a fantasy land They're allowed to go on pretending like these things aren't so. And that's on us. Because what's the other answer? The other option is this. We make a law that says Fox News can't say the things that they said. We make a law that's saying streamers online can't say the lies they told. I would argue that you might be able to come up with some law that regulates streamers of a certain size, television studios of a certain size. But that is deferring the responsibility to somebody else. No matter how you slice it, that's cutting away at some of our rights because we can't handle it. And you know what? Maybe we can't. After this era, maybe we can't. Maybe we do have to say, once you have 1 million, I don't know what you measure them in, viewers per month, something like that, then you have a higher level of responsibility to the truth. Maybe, but I don't like that it defers the responsibility culturally. And it also ignores a very big problem. And we'll see this problem crop up in other places. I would rather deal with the problem now. Culturally, how many of our neighbors, how many of our family members are walking around just believing lies, just choosing to pretend like lies are real? I know these people. I know some of these people, I should say. They're not dumb enough that they actually think these things are true. The question remains, how do we deal with it? I say culturally. Culturally, we deal with it. Steve Bannon correctly addressed it. It's a culture war. That is how this is fought. Does that mean it's going to be kick-ass with culture mortars and culture jet planes? No. It's as simple as when you find somebody believing in nonsense, you express the fact that it is nonsense. I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings coming up, but it's important that you hear this from a different perspective. How many times on this channel have you heard me stress the fact that, and I'm not going to ask you to change on this particular thing, but I'm going to point this out as an example. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in horoscopes. I don't think there's any value in making serious decisions based off those things being true. Why? Because there is no evidence for it. There's just none. I'm interested in those things. I don't believe they're so. You don't have to burn how many people in this audience, and don't feel like you have to answer, do believe in those things and nonetheless watch this channel despite the fact that I have said I don't believe in those things? You don't have to burn a bridge to speak the truth about something. And I've done a poor job of communicating that with letting my anger at Trump supporters spill out. But that's a fact. You just have to address the reality. Narcissism versus common sense equals the culture war. Yeah. Yeah. Wireless Mike, it disturbs me that the race is this close. Thank you. This is the easiest, most obvious choice we have, and yet the polls are tied. What happens when a smart Trump comes around? Exactly the point, Wireless Mike. Exactly the point. It's on us to make a better society. The people who have been throwing elbows and deciding where the Overton window is have been the worst among us for my whole life. It's been nosy soccer parents and, nosy football parents, frankly, and terrified suburbanites. Enough. I come from those people. Let me tell you, those people ought not to be deciding what's best for society. Us. People who spend their leisure time listening to programs about how to make the country better. People who will get into lengthy disagreements over how best to handle actual problems. Those people need to take the reins. That means, I think, starting with an impatience for nonsense. You cannot horoscope your way through the news. You can't do vibes-based news programs. If somebody says a thing happened, and then later it turns out not only did the thing not happen, but the person who said it knew they were lying at the time, you must never again watch that person. That person, Fox News and Tucker Carlson, rather those people, Fox News and Tucker Carlson, Jeanine Pirro, the whole gang, they knew. They were lying and they knew. So Fox has to be gone from every military base. Fox, that's more of a piece of legislation we need to sign, but Fox also needs to be gone from every diner, from every living room. It is an organization of liars that must be dealt with. I don't care if you like how they talk about other things. That is only a reflection of your own terrible moral character. When you say, "Oh, but I like so much how they stir up anti-trans bigotry. I like so much though how they make people who are brown-skinned and want to come to our country seem like villains." That just tells me that you're a bad human being. You have where you should have morals, you instead have an old rotting shoe. But it doesn't change the fact that you can't go to them for information ever again. And that is, I think, our responsibility to handle on a cultural level. Should there be legislation for this? Perhaps. But regardless of whether or not there is, we culturally cannot shirk the responsibility of pulling our neighbors, our coworkers, our friends, and our family out of this disinformation bubble. It's on us. Go get after it. Gang, this was a short one, all things considered, but I nonetheless had a blast talking with y'all today. I've got some business to attend to, but I will be back certainly tomorrow and also Wednesday for coverage of, wait a minute. Yeah, well, anyway, I will be covering the debate, and there will be a show tomorrow. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake, and this is Donald James X.